Hey everyone, quick snapshot video on monopolistic competition and how to draw the diagram for the short run and long run. Before we go into the diagram, it's important to go through the assumptions. So I'm just writing them down now. The assumptions include, in monopolistic competition, that there are a large number of buyers and sellers. With monopolistic competition, it is essentially a mixture of your perfect comp and monopoly characteristics. So a large number of buyers and sellers clearly is from perfect comp. No barriers to entry as well, or very few barriers to entry is also a characteristic from perfect competition. The firms are profit maximizers, as we know, and that's a characteristic that all market structures generally have, unless you are a kind of social business. And finally, firms are product differentiators. So firms produce different products which are essentially non-homogeneous, so therefore that's different to perfect competition. That's more related to a non-competitive rather market where you produce goods that are differentiated in order to maximize price. It's important to note, however, that there is some degree of price making power when it comes to differentiation. I'll explain that in a second. There are three types of differentiation that we're going to look at that firms in monopolistic markets could use. There's the physical differentiation, where the product itself is slightly different to its competitors. This could be done through design or color or any special features a product might have. Then you have marketing differentiation. And with marketing differentiation, this is where firms may use promotions, where firms may use other types of marketing strategies in order to be different to their competitors. And finally, you have distribution differentiation, which is the way firms deliver their product to their consumers. This could be different with different firms in the same market structure, i.e. online could be one method, having a face-to-face shop is another method, or doing both as well, but there can be differentiation in distribution as well. Finally, we're just going back to the point of differentiation. Firms have some degree of differentiation and some degree of price making power depending on how much they differentiate the good. So now to the diagram. We've already drawn our average revenue and marginal revenue curves. Then we draw in our cost curve as normal, and we draw in our marginal cost curve as well. Now, because there is some degree of price making power, but not that much because there are many substitutes in this market still, our demand curves are a bit more elastic. Now, when we find our point of profit maximization, as you can see in blue, the equilibrium, we notice that the price of the demand curve is equal to P, and also the costs are calculated to be at C, and that small blue rectangle box there represents the supernormal profits that are being created in this industry. And again, because it's an industry where there is some degree of price making power, but not much, competitor firms only differentiate slightly, okay? And this essentially means that because of that reason, they kind of operate in the elastic region of the demand curve rather than the inelastic. And that's why you see the price of the product being more near the elastic region of the demand curve. So just to reiterate that each firm has some degree of price making power. It's important to understand that, okay? And that degree of price making power comes from the slight differentiation that they may do. Okay, in monopolistic competition, can firms make a loss? Well, the answer is yes, they can. As I've already stated, because there is some degree of differentiation, if firms come into the market and differentiate slightly, the incumbent firm may lose all of its demand or lose some demand, and therefore it could start to make a loss, okay? Alternatively, you could say that costs may go up for a firms in monopolistic competition if they have to differentiate more than normal, and that could cost money in terms of marketing, for example. But you notice here in this diagram, in order to show a loss, all I've done is I've lifted up the cost curve above the demand curve, and now when you do MC equals MR to find profit maximization, we can find the price easily off the demand curve in yellow, but we have to go up to the cost curve at that same equilibrium, and now that red box there represents a super or subnormal loss, okay? That is a loss being made because the price of the product being sold is below the cost of it, the average cost of it. So clearly at that unit, we are making a loss, and in monopolistic competition, yes, you can make a loss, and it's important to mention it for the strategies I've already mentioned. Okay, now what happens in the long run? Just like in perfect competition, you have to go through a scenario. So in the long run, as firms enter the market because of the profit incentive, this will cause supernormal profits to be reduced. How do we draw the diagram? I've drawn my demand curves in first, AR, MR. I've then drawn in my marginal cost curve to establish where the price would be. Now in yellow, you can see that I've highlighted the dot where MC equals MR. I've taken it down to Q and I've taken it up to the demand curve. And I'm going to highlight that point on the demand curve and take that across and label it as P. Now the reason I've highlighted that point is because I have to draw a tangent to the curve and then also make sure that that same curve that I've drawn tangentially to that yellow point cuts the AC at the lowest part of the curve. And you can see that's happened there. Okay, so just to highlight that, your AC in blue is just tangential to the curve, okay, at the point at which the price is. And also, where I'm just going to highlight in pink here, okay, the minimum part of the curve cuts MC rather, at the right point, because MC always has to cut AC at the lowest part, okay, of AC. So it's not a difficult diagram to draw, but if you follow the rules, you should be fine. So draw AR and MR first, then draw MC, and then tangential, then a tangential AC curve. And so it does require a little bit of practice. And so it's important to understand that at that point where you have looked at the profit maximization, because the price is equal to the cost, you're making normal profits, just like in perfect competition. In the long run, only normal profits are being made. And why is that? Well, it's because firms will enter the market and they're allowed to. The characteristics told us there are a number of buyers and sellers. There's low barriers to entry. So firms enter the market, but the beauty here is that they have the ability to differentiate only slightly. And if they do differentiate slightly, we make an irrational assumption that consumers always look for the better product and the best quality product, and therefore buy from this new firm that's entered. So the existing firm, the diagram that you see that I've drawn on the board is for the existing firm. The demand curves, these two curves here, AR and MR, have shifted inwards, okay? Because this is for the existing firm that was in the market before the new firm came in and differentiated slightly. Because the demand curves for the existing firm have shifted to the left, this has caused the average cost curve to become tangential again to where MC equals MR, the price for MC equals MR, and the lowest part of AC to cut MC at that point as well. And that's what you must make sure you do, okay? And again, just for showing you how, in terms of doing this, if I just quickly draw it again, and this is just to show you, for practice purposes, that the more you do it, the better you get at it. Cost, revenue, price, and let's put Q for now. So again, all we did was we drew an elastic average revenue curve, okay, like that. A twice as steep marginal revenue curve. Okay, I'm just going to change the color of the pen now. Now, I normally never do this. I always draw AC first, but now to make my life easier, I'm going to draw MC. And again, the reason I draw MC first is because I can do MC equals MR now, get out of the way, find Q, and also find P, the price. Now P, where I've highlighted in red, okay, just there, there's two things I need to make sure that happen now. I'm going to change the color of the pen again. I need to make sure that my AC curve, okay, just touches, okay, the red point here. All right, that red point there. But also, I need to ensure that my MC cuts AC at the lowest point. So two things you need to make sure that happens. So it requires a bit of practice. You could maneuver your paper out the way. You just need to make sure it's done well. So AC comes in, it just touches lift up. There we go, done. Okay, that's good enough. You can see now, AC just touches. And if you have to draw a little dot like I have to join them together, that's fine. You won't get penalized for that. They're just touching. You can make out that out, or you can draw the demand curve slightly thicker. And then the lowest part just cuts MC as well. That's this part here. The lowest part of the curve is cutting MC, and then you carry on drawing through. And that's, that's how you draw the diagram. Practice it a few times, you'll be perfect at it. But please remember the reasons why, which is when new firms enter the market, they slightly differentiate, and that takes away from the demand of the existing firm, and these demand curves continue to shift leftwards until normal profits are made in the industry and no other firm joins the market. Essentially, what we can say is that the product life cycle is complete. There's only so much you can differentiate an existing product before it kind of ends and you can't do anything else to it. And that's also another way to explain this. I hope that helps.